What i3 Africa is about is an infrastructure company on an open access basis, vendor neutral basis to service providers. Our business in a nutshell is to deploy infrastructure, broadband infrastructure to the home, fiber basis on a rapid deployment, low cost basis, and make that infrastructure available to the industry on an open access basis to provide services.
The i3 project is quite interesting in the sense that it was one of those projects where we started off by realizing that, to move the economy, one of the key drivers in moving the economy and the growth of a country is actually telecommunications.
Communication is integral to the development of any economy, particularly in developing markets. But we've seen firsthand what the impact of telecoms on communities are. The impact in developing countries is phenomenal. The bottom line is, there are a lot of people that say that the economic spillover effect of telecoms is the highest of any industry in the world. What we've seen and what happens in every single community is when telecoms lands, first of all when mobile telephony lands, there's an increase in economic activity. When fiber lands, that economic activity just gets multiplied 10, 20-fold. And people start earning money themselves, start to create economic wealth for themselves. And this project has really come from the realization that Africa, and South Africa for that matter, is at a particular place in its telecoms evolution. What we have and what we're rapidly getting are the backbones required to deliver broadband. What we don't have in Africa currently is the last mile. What's stopped the last mile from being deployed, or fiber to the home, FTTX as people call it, being deployed in Africa, is cost. It is really as simple as that. It costs a lot of money. More than 90% of the costs associated with deploying fiber in metropolitan areas and the last mile to the home is actually civil construction cost. It's the cost of digging up the roads, building ducts, lining it with cement and putting the fiber in there. We, as i3 Africa, circumvent all of that and cut that out of the chain. And so there's still some cost, but it's substantially less than the conventional way of deploying it, which is why our business case work. And the business cases for the conventional deployment has been slow in being launched.
What we have done, we've partnered or secured a license with a UK group called i3 Group. And we've got a patent which allows us to deploy fiber. Instead of using oil lifts and digging up trenches, actually deploy it using sewage or stormwater drains. Now that's quite phenomenal when you start thinking that we need, as a country going forward, broadband is going to become very important. And the speed at which we can deploy and put this last mile infrastructure becomes very paramount.
Once the World Cup was done and gone, we still remained with this legacy installations, which means we can reach the world. We can reach about 7 provinces in the country, and through that we could tap into the rest of the world.
The reality of the situation today all over Africa is that the marine cable side is sorted with enough bandwidth and radical price declines. The backbones are landing and are rapidly being built out, and we really have a shortage of the last mile and metro backbone. Job creation for us is quite close to our hearts.
A massive number of jobs. I mean, in simplicity, to lay or to deploy this fiber, you need people. You're eventually going to need people with machines to actually go down into the trenches and pull the fiber. And when it comes out of a mineral, it needs to be pulled to a premise, and from the premise, it needs to be pulled into a junction box on your house, and that's all labor. So there's going to be a massive number of jobs that we're going to be creating because of our ability to do this.
We have this shared value principle, where we look as a matter of principle towards local service providers and industry to help us deploy the infrastructure. We do not bring in teams from the outside to go and deploy infrastructure in a particular city. We actually approach the local structures, small business structures, triple BEE structures, government structures, etc., to identify small businesses who we then at our cost train and certify to actually deploy as well as maintain the infrastructure. We go out of our way to make sure that we create a local industry around this infrastructure, and that we take the infrastructure to the touch points in the community so that economic wealth creation can be enabled from day one.
So this i3 Africa, I think if you look at the cost that we incur, like now we actually have a project now where we'll be rolling out 700 kilometers of this fiber within one of the municipalities in South Africa. And that 700 kilometers, it won't cost us more than 250 million rands to deploy that fiber and connect that metro municipality. And that would take us almost half the time to actually finish the rollout. Now that's very important, because if you start comparing with existing other companies or technologies in terms of deploying the same fiber, it would have cost them almost 3 times more. You're looking at almost, for 700 kilometers, you'll be probably looking at about almost R1 billion in terms of capital that you'd need to deploy the same.
Why i3 Africa is an investor's choice is actually a very simple answer: cost of deployment. The fact that we have the low-cost technologies has radically changes the economics of the business plan compared to a normal fiber-to-the-home deployment. Compared to a conventional business plan, we deploy fiber about 4 times faster and at half or less than the cost.